We're going to continue where we left off, page Kuf Ayin Tet Amud Bet 179b. And yesterday we were talking how the Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one who sends you the Yetzer Hara to create the challenge. But nevertheless, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one who is praying and holding, crossing his fingers that you'll put up a fight and that you will win. And we summarized it in one way. How can you be victorious over the Yetzer Hara and win the challenge? Is only, as we said, Hatzadik sheyareh mikono, the one who goes in the path of righteousness and is fearing his master. If you don't fear your master, you will never be successful in the battle of the Yetzer Hara. You're not going to overpower your challenges, and life is going to be very hard. Now we're going to continue exactly where we left off. We're still quoting what the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says. If you want to follow, again, 179b, the line starts with Tachazeh. Come and see. Kama bishin avru aled Yaakov. Look how much bad things Yaakov had to go through. Begin delo itdabak behu Yetzer Hara v'itrachak michulake. And look how much suffering Yaakov had to go through, only not to be attached to the Yetzer Hara and to not to have anything to do with the Yetzer Hara. Yaakov went in ways just not to get into any type of connection with the Yetzer Hara. Why? Ki en Satan mekatreg al ish shu mimino. The Satan doesn't prosecute on somebody that is of the same kind. Ela al hamitdabkim ba'kadosh baruch hu mekatreg alem milemala. The Satan, the devil, doesn't prosecute against somebody like him. Like the devil prosecutes against who goes in the path of Hashem. He prosecutes them in the world above, and he confuses you in the world below. And all the sorrow that Yaakov had to go through is because he used to move away from the Yetzer Hara. So right away will come a prosecution. And because of that, therefore he went through many different punishments. And we say he had to not be in his house for 22 years. His father-in-law cheated him. Esav was running after him. Yosef got kidnapped. Dinah was raped. You go through the life of Yaakov, then he went through a very hard life. Not only that he went through a lot of bad things. Lo haya lo sheket vela shakit. He didn't have peace and quiet. You would think Yaakov says, "Listen, I have a lot of money now. Let me just enjoy the ocean view penthouse and relax." And that's what Rashi says, that the second that he kind of settled down, right away Yosef was kidnapped. Kafatz alav rogzo. Right away he got out of focus. And then again, another 22 years of suffering till he saw Yosef. But nevertheless, all this is because he constantly ran away from the Yetzer Hara. So this in itself can explain to you that if your agenda is to run away from evil, don't think that you're going to be sending box of chocolates every day. You get a box of chocolates in the mail. You're going to have a lot of challenges and headaches because the Yetzer Hara is going to go after you. If you are evil, mean, and so forth, you're on his team. He's not going to bother you. But if you're on the other team and you present honesty and freedom and courtesy and truth and honesty and so forth, then the Satan is your enemy. So he's going to come against you.
But it can also be the opposite though too. Right.
Now we're reading what it says in the book. Everything has many ways of looking at everything. But now we're just reading what the text says. And everything can look at it from different directions, no doubt. But nevertheless, just so we can keep on the text, so we're reading in the text and translating. Now he continues. Patach Rabbi Shimon ve'amar. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai opened his mouth and in order to explain the idea behind Yaakov. If you remember, many of you were not here in the first class, but we started the class by saying we want to explain the verse that our parasha starts with, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv. All this, what do you think we're trying to explain here? We want to explain why does the Torah tells me that Yaakov Avinu sat in the place of his father. Who cares where he lived? But you ever wondered where Rabbi Akiva lived? He lived on Rehov Rabbi Akiva 12. I didn't ask his address. It doesn't matter to me where he lived. Why are you telling me that Yaakov lived in the house of his father? So obviously there's something behind it. The Torah is not wasting words. It's not just throwing words out there. So Rabbi Shimon says, okay, in order for me to continue explaining this idea, Rabbi Shimon opened up his mouth, Patach ve'amar, Lo shalvati ve'lo shakateti ve'lo nachti ve'yavo rogez. There is a verse in the book of Eov. Eov is Job, in chapter 3, when he says, I didn't have peace, I didn't have quiet, I didn't rest, and I got aggravated and upset. Sounds familiar, no? That's our life. Meaning, Me'olam lo yashavti beshalva. I've never sat in peace. Uvesheket. And with tranquility and calm. Venachat. Why? Ki yareti min hara'a haba mitrageshet la'olam. I was fearing the next evil that will come to shake the world. Vehine, and here, ba'alai harogez v'acharada. And therefore came on me anger and anxiety. Tachazi, come and see. Kama bishin savlin tzadikaya b'hai alma. Come and look at all the suffering that our sages, that tzaddikim, they go through in this world. If you pull out the social security records of all of our tzaddikim, can you show that one didn't go through suffering? I don't think there's even one. If you go in our history, that you can say, oh, that tzaddik was perfect. All of them, as one, had a very, very, very difficult lives. Anyone, you'll say their name, you'll see what a difficult life they had. They were always prosecuted and run after and mocked and, Hashem Yerachem. And one by one. Just the other day, we were reading a book about the I don't know how you call it, but the life, not a documentary, but some type of a life story about Rabbi Nachman from Breslev. Biography. Do you think that he was popular? He was not popular at all. He was actually hated. He was ran out. After he dies, now he becomes the legend. But while he was alive, you think he was popular and everybody liked him, everybody listened to him? He was looked upon as a meshugane. Yeah. What do you think about the Arizal here in Tzfat? You think anybody liked him? You think he was accepted here with open hands? So nevertheless, David HaMelech, just look at all the tzaddikim. So he says here, Kama bishin savlin tzadikah behar alma. Look how much suffering the tzaddikim in this world have to go through. Bishin al bishin, ke'evin al ke'evin. Evil and pain and pain. Saying in other words, yesh shesovlim al avonam. Some people, you know why they suffer? Because they sin a lot. So the sin is the reaction of their action. But some people are not like that. The Talmud says, if you are experiencing hardship, Adam ba'al Adam yesurim mefashpesh b'ma'asav. Something happens, you got a ticket today, you got a bad phone call, you got a lawsuit, I don't know what, somebody's picking on you, something's going on, then don't pull a finger. Go through your stuff, through your actions, because maybe you did something. Don't get upset. You get a ticket, don't get upset at the officer that gives you the ticket. Say, wait a minute, Hashem is sending me now a warning. Maybe I've stolen money. Maybe I embezzled money. Maybe I cheated in money. Maybe I did gezel, taking something that doesn't belong to me and cheating somebody in business. I don't know, maybe I did something. And I'm just giving one example out of many, because usually the reaction will be the same as the action. So anything that happens to you, the Talmud says, lefashpesh b'masav, go through your actions and see. And you might say, who am I kidding? Yesterday I did this and that. So now I'm getting it straight to my face. And Hashem is very kind. He's always going to give it in a very small dose. So you'll just get a 40 shekel ticket or something small. Listen, not going to take a lot of your money. You ignore it, then suddenly the boiler explodes. You ignore that, the roof will collapse. Till you get the point that, wait a minute, I owe somebody money, or I cheated money out of somebody. And this is again one example out of many. Don't take just this example. But when you do something wrong, the Lord right away is going to give you a little tap on your back. Whoa, be careful. So, but the same place in the Talmud, it says, if the person went through his actions and found that everything is good, that means that these yisurim, this hardship, is coming from love. Hashem loves you, so He wants to put hardship on you. ויש שסובלים מחמת קושי מלחמת היצר הרע. This is not the Talmud. The Talmud says that if you still have yisurim, it means that you have bitul Torah, that you're wasting your time not on Torah. But here he says something different. So he says some people, they suffer because they do sin. Some people suffer because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to put them through hardship. And some people suffer because they have very hard time fighting with the Yetzer Hara. Begin lemizkelon le'alma de'ate. But you know what? What's the point of that? To give them the zchut to the world to come. So when I have battles and hardship with the Yetzer Hara, today in the morning we gave over a very, very interesting class that, again, another one that I highly recommend to watch, very short, about the lights of Hanukkah, what's the idea behind the flame of Hanukkah, what can be achieved. But nevertheless, I was explaining that one of the main reasons why you suffer in this world is because the Yetzer Hara is a movie producer. He's a Hollywood producer, and he takes you to a movie every time. Every second of your life is a movie. And there's a parable. Now, once there was a man that didn't live in society, and he moved into a big city, like a crocodile Dundee. Came from nowhere, from the jungle, and then he's in the city. So everything is like, wow. So they took him to a movie house. And he sits in his movie house, comfortable chair, big box of popcorn, starts eating. Everything is good. Suddenly, they turn the lights off. Whoa! Why did they turn the light off? He said, well, we have to start the movie. But I can't see anything. He says, but if you have the lights on, you're not going to see the movie. Remember how they used to have it in movie theaters? They turn the lights off. How are you going to see the movie if there's lights in the room? So same thing here, the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is a producer, is a filmmaker. He shows you the whole world as a movie. But first he has to turn the lights off. So we're in such darkness here that everything looks like the movie, but I have to see the movie. So the Yetzer Hara turns the lights off. So everything that is going on bad in my life, I have to understand. That's what we talked about in the class in the morning. I recommend you see it. I can't repeat the whole class. But the second that you acknowledge that everything that happens in your life is good, then you go beyond the darkness of the Yetzer Hara. And you reach to a level that is called Geula, redemption. You are above the limitations of the world. And one of our greatest sages of all history mastered that. This is none but the other, but Rabbi Akiva. 22 years he toiled on this idea, and he came to the conclusion, Kol man derachamana avid letav avid. Everything that Hashem does, it's only good. 22 years took him to figure that out. And he had the masters of masters. Rabbi Akiva's Rebbe, his teacher, was Nachum Ish Gamzu Letova. So it all boiled down that in everything that happens to you in your life, it's all for the best. Now, if you are looking at it from a very limited vision, then you'll see the negative in it, and then you empower the negative, then you fall for the trick of the Satan, and now life is not so interesting. But if you look at a situation and right away you're trying to recognize what's the positive part in it, and you recognize it, then you go above the state of limitation and above the state of darkness. So same thing here. He says, look at all the tzaddikim, how much suffering they went through. Now imagine now, this is a big question that many people ask. Look at this person, a wicked person, thief, cheats on his wife, embezzles money all day long, does this and that, and look, he has money, beautiful cars, fame, success. And here you look at this person, all day long prays, honest, never steals, straight like an arrow, doesn't have money, has problems, health, issues. We know there's a verse that says tzaddik ve'ra lo, rasha ve'tov lo. The tzaddik it's hard for him. Everything is bad, and the rasha, the evil one, everything is good. So he comes and tells you there's different types of suffering. You have to also categorize what's your suffering. Is your suffering from your sins, or is your suffering from the the hardship that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is showing you love, or that you have just an issue with your Yetzer Hara. You just don't know how to battle the Yetzer Hara. But nevertheless, how is he concluded? Lemezike ilon le'alma de'ate. All this is to give you zchut, a merit, to win your olam haba. I mean, if you have any type of an agenda to invest in this world, you're wasting your time. The investment is only in the world to come. Anything that you do in this world is a waste of time. If you not everything, let me rephrase it. Anything that you do for the benefit of something that you're going to get in this world is a waste of time. So it's very important to eat healthy, but you don't have to go cuckoo over it. It's important to work out, to be in good shape, but to spend 3 hours a day in a gym, what are you investing? That your body's going to look nice? It's a waste of time. The body's going to go to the ground and become manure for the worms. What's the investment here? So work 10 minutes a day just to have some, to be in good shape, so you can be healthy, and that's it. And so any investment I'll do here, some people, the amount of money that goes in this world on hand creams and lotions and all sorts of junk, and like, really? People buy that. Up until today, they buy that. The cream, and one of the biggest fraud ever. The cream. Why are you putting cream on your hand? That's what it matters to you. That your hand is going to be nice, and I mean, that's a false investment. It's like me washing my car every day. Wash your car once a month. You just need to be clean. So anything you'll invest in this world to get a benefit in this world, it's a waste of time. You invest your time to the world to come. Because you know what? This world goes like that. This life goes like that. And then you come to the world above. Then what? Now, if you missed one opportunity, what are you going to do? You think you might be from the lucky ones that they give you a U-turn to come back? What if they don't give you a U-turn? So you're now investing for the world to come. That's why we talked about the other day that a smart person, a person that has Yirat Shamayim, if you fear Hashem, you know what it means? It means that you know the one day you're going to meet Him. Because if I don't think that I'm going to meet Hashem one day, so I don't fear Him. Now, if you do really fear Hashem, you go through the book and you say, let me see what the master, what the architect told me to do. Yesterday and the day before, I've mentioned, we were talking about slandering, lying, Lashon Hara, and so forth. So we quoted the Rambam in the Sefer HaMadah. I think it's translated in English as the Book of Science. But nevertheless, he says there that there are 3 sins that a person gets punished in this world and he loses his Olam Haba. Idol worship, forbidden relations, and bloodshed. The 3 sins that Adam HaRishon brought to the world, the 3 sins that destroyed the first Beit HaMikdash, and the 3 sins that most people fail on a daily basis. And ask me why, how do we fail in bloodshed? Because if you insult somebody in public, you talk bad about them, that's bloodshed. You're shedding that person's blood. You are guilty in murder. Needless to say that when it comes to forbidden relations, that everybody fails with it. I mean, let's not hold ourselves in the level that we are not, because you can fail with your mind also. And I gave yesterday the analogy with the bets, and you're walking in the street in the red dress, so you all know what I'm talking about. But nevertheless, we fail in this all the time. Idol worship? You know, your iPhone just goes bzzz, you jump on it, that's idol worship. Why are you idling your phone? It's a piece of metal that is bzzz. So we fail with it all the time. But nevertheless, so Rambam says that these 3 sins, a person will get punished for that in this world and would lose his Olam Haba. Can you imagine losing your Olam Haba? I can't even fathom that you leave this world, you come to the gate, they're looking at the list. Oh, Mr. Cohen, oh, I'm very sorry, you're out of the list. We had to delete you a few years ago. Where am I going now? Well, you're going to, I don't know where. We're just going to click the delete button and you're out of the system. Can you imagine getting the slam door in your face in Olam Haba? I mean, I'm scared out of my mind just to think about that. So, and Rambam adds on that a person who talks Lashon Hara is more powerful than all 3 of them together. Are you that ignorant that you're willing to risk your Olam Haba for something so minor? I mean, it's not so minor, but all it takes is to close your mouth. So, he ends this paragraph by saying, Begin lemizikeilon le'alma de'ate. Hashem is giving you a lot of hardship to give you the zchut to come to Olam Haba. What if you don't have that zchut? You lost the ticket. You can't come on the train, my friend. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu is very kind. He's giving you the opportunity to come to Olam Haba. Don't mess it up by wasting your ticket, your express ticket to Olam Haba. This is not a joke. Now he continues and he says, Yaakov, Kama savil bishin al bishin tadir. Yaakov went through so many bad things, always. Kama da'at Amar, as it says, Lo shalvati beveita de Lavan, velo yechilna lishtaz b'mineh. I didn't have one moment of quiet in the house of Lavan. 20 years, didn't have one vacation. Can you imagine 20 years not to have a vacation or a day off? Lavan was not the type of boss that you can call and say, listen, I don't feel good today. Say to Lavan, I don't feel good today? You got a kick in your tuchus. Can you imagine 20 years to work for Lavan, then come home, change diapers? You know what it is, 11 kids? How many diapers do you have to change? Start doing the dishes. You think Yaakov came and was getting a massage at night? 20 years he lived in the house of Lavan, and he says, Shalvatil beveta de Lavan lo yachline. I didn't even have 1 second of resting in the house of Lavan. Not only that, I wasn't able to be even saved from his trickingness, or I don't know how you say, to be tricky, tachbulot, all day long. Can you imagine dealing with Lavan as a double father-in-law and a boss? I mean, I have one father-in-law and that's enough. He has two, because it's two sisters. I mean, everything is in a joke, of course. But he had double father-in-law and a boss as Lavan. Can you imagine dealing with this boss? One day you do this, one day you do that. He constantly changed everything. Shinitat maskorti 1000 monim. 1,000 times you changed my workflow and the maskoret and the salary. As it says, ve'ichlifet masmorti 10 monim. You changed my maskoret, my pay, my salary so many times. Velo shakateti me'Esav. Not only that, at 20 years I'm suffering from Lavan, and I'm still getting the heat of Esav. What do you think? Esav just went to the Caribbean and sat there with a pina colada? For 20 years, Esav was still stirring the pot. Can you imagine? You would think somebody goes against you, after half a year they'll relax. 20 years, Esav all day long is going on Facebook and writing, my brother took my... he had a very intense Facebook account, Esav. All day long. Slandering the name of his brother. He stole my Bechorah, my firstborn. He stole my blessings. He stole this, he stole that, he stole my wife. Esav didn't sit in the background quietly. Mehahu tzara detzir lihahu memana dile. From not only that, even after he came out of Haran, we read that last week, that the Yaakov fought with the malach, with the angel. He says here, even I had sorrow from the one who's in charge of Esav. Ulevatar dechilu de Esav, and after that, can you imagine the fear that I had from Esav himself? When Yaakov at the end of the day was afraid of Esav. Even after it was a handshake and a hug, each one went to their way. Yaakov was afraid of Esav. Esav is, maybe he was associated with, El Capone, I don't know, he was associated with. Yaakov was afraid. Now, right after that, I just came out of Haran, right away, Dinah is getting captured and raped and tortured and so forth. Then I go into a disagreement with Shechem. And you think in the Torah, it said it very calm, that they came and had a nice conversation. It wasn't a nice conversation. I don't know if you actually read through the lines. Dinah was not released. When they came to negotiate, Dinah was still captured. So you go through the verses, it looks like, okay, they had a nice conversation, sat, a cup of tea and a cup of coffee. Hi, how are you? And I want to marry your daughter to my son. Wasn't a nice encounter. Only after that, when Shimon and Levi went and destroyed the whole city, then they took Dinah out. She was still captured the whole time. So he said, I had an issue with Shechem. This is not some walk in the park. And more than that, V'yavo rogez, and after that came another anger. Da rugza v'irbuvia de Yosef deiu kashya mikulhu. And then on top of all that came the whole problem with Yosef. Can you imagine Yaakov? Now the son disappears. He doesn't know if it's true, if it's not true. Should I sit shiva? I not sit shiva? What do I do? What's going to happen? Can you imagine the sorrow he had? Now the problem with Yaakov, when you sit shiva, when you mourn a person, then by default the connection between the souls lets loose. In two parashot, when finally Yosef tables turn, and now Yosef is the king, and you know the whole story. He took the brothers, he arrested them, sent them back to bring Binyamin. What does Yehuda say when he approaches Yosef? He says that Binyamin and Yaakov, v'nafsho kshura b'nafsho. The nefesh is tied to the other nefesh. Don't take him away. Now, Yaakov was suffering the whole 22 years because Joseph really didn't die. So the mourning didn't help. Why do you think we have a whole year of mourning in Judaism? First you have the Shiva, 7 days, then 30 days, then 11 months, then the year, then the every year. There's a reason for that. This is not something that, some old man said 3,000 years ago and says, okay, what should we do when somebody dies? Let's sit for a week. That sounds... There's a reason why we sit 7 days Shiva. Because that's the time it takes for the nefesh to get disconnected. When the person is buried, the nefesh is attached to the body. It can't leave the body. So it takes 7 days for the nefesh to be ejected from the body. In that 7 days, the nefesh, I'm talking about the nefesh, not the ruach, not the neshama. The nefesh sits on the grave the whole night. If you were able to see it with X-ray vision, you would see the nefesh is sitting on the grave. That's why there's just a pile of sand the first week. And every day the nefesh goes to the home where they sit Shiva. That's why you sit Shiva during the day. They cover the mirrors because the nefesh gets frightened. Can you imagine for the nefesh? It feels like a human being. The nefesh feels like you, just without the body. You know how you have your thoughts, your emotions and everything? It stays exactly the same. Just that you look like this. There's no hand. Can you just imagine what's going on to the nefesh? Can you imagine the nefesh looking in a mirror and there's nothing there? What a shock the nefesh gets. It frightens the nefesh. So we cover the mirrors. Nothing here is just an invention. So 7 days, the nefesh is going from the grave to the home, from the grave to the home. 30 days it takes to the nefesh to slowly get released from the body. So 30 days, we don't go to the cemetery. It's extremely bad, actually, to go to the cemetery in the 30 days. But nevertheless, the whole year is when the person goes through his trial. Can you imagine a whole year trial? Now it's year of our time. In Shamayim, that trial can be 1,000 years. But only after the year, that's it. The nefesh, the ruach, the neshama, they go wherever they need to go to. And then if the person mourned the loss of somebody the right way, that year the knot between the souls gets disattached and you move on. And the ones who don't really mourn, they'll suffer for the rest of their life. Yaakov couldn't mourn Yosef because he really didn't die. So he was in tsar, in sorrow for 22 years. Now, this is the pshat. The Kabbalah here was that Yaakov was the tiferet and Yosef was the yesod. And the Yaakov in this world, since he didn't have Yosef as the yesod, he didn't have connection to the malchut, so Yaakov couldn't have any ruach hakodesh. So Yosef was the link that connected Yaakov. Yaakov is the tiferet. In order for the tiferet to get any type of nourishment from the malchut, it needs the yesod. The yesod is the foundation, the link. Yosef was not there. Yaakov lost his ruach hakodesh. He was a nothing. Can you imagine having ruach hakodesh and then it disappears? So he suffered because Yosef, not because physically necessarily loved him, because he didn't have his connection, his spiritual partner to receive Ruach HaKodesh. So he couldn't, because a lot of people ask, what, Yaakov didn't know in his Ruach HaKodesh that the tribes tricked him? No, he didn't. He lost his Ruach HaKodesh. So Yaakov was mourning Yosef for 22 years. Even when they came back, he didn't believe them. When they came back with all the presents and everything, he's like, no, I don't believe you. Can you imagine what a suffer for a father to lose the child? So he says here, first of all, Lavan and Esav and Dinah and Shechem. And then comes the anger and the frustration of Yosef. And that was the hardest of all. And he says here, Ve'amar lashon bilbul. It was a confusion. Why confusion? Ki lo haya rak bilbul hadat. It wasn't just something that, when something is very hard on you. It doesn't matter right now what. Some people, they I don't know what, go through a very hard divorce. In and out of courts, money, problem. That can take a person down to Gehenom this year. Or chas v'shalom, a lawsuit, or criminal, something. Sometimes people have a year in their life, that year, they become gray in that year. This is called bilbul, like a confusion. I mean, you can't sleep, you can't eat, you don't function. But here he says, Lo haya rak bilbul dat. It wasn't just that being occupied in the mind, and sorrow, v'tzar. Ki be'emet lo nitraf Yosef, ve'lo ne'erag. Yosef wasn't really killed. If he would be really killed, he would sit a whole year and mourn, and that's it, and move on. Ela, rather, adraba. אלוקים חשבה לטובה למען לשום להם שארית בארץ, but nevertheless, this whole plot, that was already Hashem's architecture that he wanted Yosef to end up in Mitzrayim. And look what happened from that. Yosef became the second to the king. Then there was a famine for 7 years. Yosef sustained the entire world. ומגור רחימותא דיעקב לגבי דיוסף דאי הוא רזה דברית על במצרים. From the great love that Yaakov had to Yosef, that he is the secret was what is called the Brit, the Yesod. Yosef was the Yesod. This is what I just explained. What does it mean that Yosef was the Yesod? Yosef was the foundation, the chariot of the Zeir Anpin. The Zeir Anpin is the face, what's called Partzuf of Atzilut, that contains in it 6 Sfirot. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Yosef was the chariot, or I wouldn't even say now the chariot, rather the wagon. You know, imagine now, you show me that wagon. You want to move 40 boxes from here to here. What do you want to do? You want to put them all in a wagon, and you move the whole wagon. Why take the boxes one by one? You have to think a little bit smarter. So in our days, they'll call it a truck. But in olden days, maybe a wagon. So he's, so to say, the foundation that everything sits on him. That was Yosef. נאנס יעקב לרדת למצרים. Yaakov had to, against his will, to go down to Mitzrayim to meet Yosef in Mitzrayim. ומאת השם הייתה זאת, and that was, Hashem did that. Hashem is the architect here. ובגין דלבטה, only that later, as it says, כתיב, ואזכור את בריתי, and I will remember my covenant. Hashem remembered the covenant that he did with Avraham and Yitzchak. לשתכחה שכינתה תמן בהדה, that the Shechina that was placed in Mitzrayim will go out with him. Saying in other words, שמחמת Yosef, because of Yosef, ירד יעקב למצרים. First Yosef had to be pulled to Mitzrayim, then Yaakov had to be pulled to Mitzrayim. וירדה עמו שכינה. Now the Shechina went to Mitzrayim with Yaakov. Why? כדי להתייחד עם יעקב כל חייו, that the Shechina will be attached to Yaakov for the rest of his life. ואחרי מות יעקב, and after the death of Yaakov, נשארה השכינה שם עם יוסף. The Shechina stayed with Yosef in Mitzrayim. כשמת יוסף, when the Yosef died, נשארה השכינה עם ישראל. Then the Shechina stayed with Israel, with the nation of Israel, in exile, עד צאתם ממצרים, till they left Egypt. זהו זכירת הברית, this is the remembrance of the covenant. פירוש זכירת השכינה שהיא בגלות, remembering that the Shechina is constantly in exile. We're going to stop over here, but first just a quick explanation that when you're looking at the chain of events, Yosef first went to Mitzrayim, and then Yaakov, the tribes came to Mitzrayim, and then Yaakov came to Mitzrayim. Yosef is we know that we have 4 Mashiachim. We have the one who's going to come to redeem us, Mashiach ben David. There's Mashiach ben Yosef that comes to prepare the world before the redemption, and we also have Mashiach ben Ephraim and Mashiach ben Menashe. One time we'll do a class about that, because many people, when I mention that, they're like, "Who? I never heard of that." But nevertheless, let's concentrate on Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben Yosef, of course, he comes from Yosef, from Bet Yosef. And Mashiach ben David comes from Yehuda. These are the 2 kings that there's a Mashiach coming from them. We're going to read next week that Yosef first went to Mitzrayim. When the tribes came, he rebuked them, the whole story, and then Yaakov comes down to Mitzrayim. But before Yaakov comes to Mitzrayim, what does it say? That he sent Yehuda in front of them. People, when we read the story, we think that they just went up there, packed a bag, and just went down. Nothing moves so fast. I had to now call the cable company. We're relocating. We need you to cut the cable from here. The cable is going to be in Mitzrayim now. The phone, different utilities. It wasn't such a fast thing that Yaakov just packed his bags and, yalla, let's go. So he first sent Yehuda. Why did he send Yehuda? To establish a yeshiva. And so that we will have a yeshiva, a shul, a sefer Torah, a mikveh, a kosher butcher. Yaakov, I'm going to come and there's not going to be nothing there. So the idea behind it, maybe this week or next week we'll talk about it more, because the idea was to make Yosef and Yehuda meet. Because really, Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, they don't go together. there's I don't want to say a disagreement, but they don't fit well. That's the ultimate reason why we have to come down to the world, is to take two things that are opposite and to make them work, to bridge between two things, to connect between one and the other. Doesn't mean one is better than the other. Just presenting the idea. When Yosef went first to Mitzrayim, he was already there. Yehuda had to go first there. Yehuda had to go first to Mitzrayim so they can work out what they need to do, and then Yaakov came. Then the Shekhinah was able to come down to Mitzrayim, and later on in order to leave Mitzrayim. But maybe we'll explain that a little bit more at the end of the week or next week, because it will be more applicable, but that's something that we need to understand. But at this point at least, we have to understand that in order to summarize the class, there are, according to what we're saying here, 3 types of Yesurim, 3 types of hardships. The first one is because you did a sin. Don't sugarcoat anything. You did a sin, there's going to be a slap to your face. Don't think it's going to disappear somehow. And if anybody tells you it's okay, don't worry, it's going to be the law of, how do you call it, that many years pass and it goes off your record? Chok HaYeshnut, how do you call it? Okay, I'm sure there's a word for that, but nevertheless, in Hebrew it says Chok HaYeshnut. 7 years pass, you can't sue the person anymore, or whatever it is. So, there's no such a thing with sin. Statute of limitation. So, there's no such a thing with a sin. Some people say, 20 years I sinned. It already evaporated in the world. There's no such a thing. So, first I have to understand that for every action that I did that is negative, if there's no tshuva for that, the sin exists and there's going to be a reaction to that. There's going to be a reaction in this world, and 1,000 times stronger the reaction in the world to come. You didn't get rid of it. Don't think for 1 second you got rid of things, unless you really did tshuva. And that's why I said so many times, we don't have a school for tshuva. I mean, I've been to a few yeshivot. Nobody taught me how to do tshuva. They taught me how to open a book and start reading. And I never went to any course or any type of tshuva boot camp. This is how you do tshuva. It's very bad because you have to figure it out by yourself. And the majority don't really do the right tshuva because, I don't know, most people, they move on from here where they are and forward, but they forget this is also a past. Very few people are really looking into the past and saying, how many people I insulted, how many people I cheated, how many people I cheated their money out of, how many times I did this and that. I became observant. I mean, the mitzvot lotas, the stuff that you are not allowed to do, that's a little bit easier to do the tikkun, the rectification. Just stop doing it. Stop doing it and that's it. And that's the tikkun. But what about the mitzvot that you have to do and you didn't do? So I counted how many times I didn't put tefillin on in my life. It's very easy. You take a calendar and you go back from bar mitzvah till that day. Remove Shabbatot that you don't put tefillin on. Remove the holidays that you don't put tefillin on. And I came to a number. It was like 4,000 something times that I didn't put tefillin on. 14 years. Now what do you do now? I'm missing 4,000 times putting tefillin on. What, am I going to put tefillin on now twice? How do you do that? How do you rectify the fact that I didn't put tefillin on 4,000 times? If you don't think you're going to come up to Shamayim, they're going to tell you, listen, Habibi, you're missing in the storage a lot of tefillin that you had to, it's a mitzvah to say. You have to do it. Nobody's asking you if you want to, if you have a mood today. You have to do it whether you like it or not. Now what do you do? I'm missing now 4,000 tefillin. I calculated how many times I desecrated Shabbat. I counted how many times I desecrated any mitzvah. How many times I did what's called bitul mitzvah to say. I came with the exorbitant amount of debt. Now what do you do? Now a lot of people say, how many people actually when they did tshuva thought about that? Somebody ever told you? Have you ever thought of how many times you didn't put tefillin on? You owe that tefillin. You think it's a recommendation? You're going to come up to Shamayim and you're not whole. You're missing something. V'Avraham zaken ba bayamim. Avraham didn't miss one opportunity, one moment out of his life. Have you ever thought of how many times you didn't put tefillin on? I mean, we're all Baal Tshuvas. How many times you didn't say Birkat HaMazon? How many times you desecrate Shabbat? How many times? But there's answers for everything. So you can't put tefillin twice. You can't observe Shabbat twice, but you can make somebody put tefillin on. Now you make somebody put tefillin on, then it's not necessarily as equal as one time of yours, but put on a couple thousand people's tefillin, you will balance it out. I couldn't put tefillin, so I'll make sure that you put tefillin on. And if you need to buy tefillin, I'll help you buy, so I have dividends. Here tefillin, here tefillin, here tefillin. You want to have thousands of people on your record that when they come and tell you, you missed 4,000 times putting tefillin. Yeah, but look how many times I made people put tefillin. I took out of my time. Instead of sitting and watching a movie or sleeping, I went out to the street and said, you want to put tefillin on? You want to put tefillin on? You want to put tefillin on? So I know you might seem a little bit OCD or fanatic, but you want to balance it out. How many times did I desecrate Shabbat? Okay, so make people observe Shabbat. And so forth. So real tshuva is not only looking forward. Whoa, you have a debt from here to 20 years. So a lot of the yisurim, the hardship that I get, is because of my own actions. Don't complain to anybody. You can only complain to yourself. And I gave many, many different classes. There are ways to find out where and what you did wrong. Nobody can come and say, I don't know what I did. How can I rectify it? There's ways to do everything. If you really want to do tshuva, the Talmud says, you approach and you're saying, I want to do tshuva, Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to send you assistance from above. When I became observant, I owed people so many people just started popping up in front of my face. Hey, I owe you money! Really? Yeah? How much? A lot. I was like the people's best friend. I would show up to people, hey, I owe you money. Really? How much? So, you really want to do tshuva, Hashem is going to put right in front of you all the opportunities to really do tshuva. The next part of Yisurim is that it's Yisurim of love, hardship that Kadosh Baruch Hu loves you. Now if I make a sin, okay, let's say I made a sin, I stole from you. Then, Baruch Hashem, I was inspired to do tshuva, I came back, I apologize, here's what I saw, or the value of it, I appease you, we shake our hands, we hug, we kiss, we make up. Now I gave you back what I stole. You forgave me, hopefully, but I still made a blemish in the world above. That's why we used to bring korbanot. The korban is not to atone the sin, is what's called ritzui hadin, is that I have to appease after that. I come with a present. If I now hurt you, the next day I will send you a box of chocolates or some flowers. See, nowadays they don't do that. They send you a text with something that opens up and some butterflies and all sorts of nonsense. But Nevertheless, I did all sorts of sins, and I don't know everything where I spread it out. So Hashem will put me through different hardship just to get all this junk off me. This is called Yisurim Shel Ahava. Hashem loves you. He's cleaning you off, cleaning all the dirt. So every time you chas v'shalom, you get a ticket, chas v'shalom, somebody bumps into your car, whatever happens, most people get upset. The smart person says, Baruch Hashem, Toda Rabba, you're cleaning me from some type of junk that I owed somebody 40 years ago something. Now it's getting off my record. That's why our sages say, Kabel et ha'isurim be'ahava, accept the hardship with love. Besides the fact that when you appreciate what Hashem gives you, even the hardship, then the hardships disappear. But the third that he says here, that this is, we have to understand that, and he says, V'yesh shesovlim mechamat koshi melchemet ha'yetzer hara. That we have suffering because the Yetzer Hara is driving me nuts. And I told you yesterday, Yetzer Hara is not necessarily going to come and tell you to desecrate Shabbat. The Yetzer Hara is going to bring you to a situation that you get upset, that you get angry, that you get depressed, that you get full in fear and anxieties. The Yetzer Hara has many different ways where he's looking to put you down. And I told you, watch the class that I gave in the morning, because I was explaining how the Yetzer Hara is attacking you in 3 different levels. He's not necessarily looking to make you sin. That's just a present on the way. That's wants to make you angry, anxiety, fear, depression, sadness, and so forth. So I have to understand, to summarize it, that the hardship that we're getting is not only always bad. And the reason why I want to understand that, because if the attitude changes, then at least I take the good out of the challenge. And if something bad happens, must be something good there. Because everything in this world is ignited and sustained by a godly spark. Which means that even in the worst thing in the world, there's some godly spark there. Because if there wouldn't be a godly spark there, then it wouldn't exist. Must be that everything has a godly spark. And we explained in the class before that it says specifically in Likutei Moharan, in Torah Yud Bet, where it says Ayeh, that's called the name of the Torah, that everything in the world has a godly power, a godly spark that enlivens it. Now, there is a verse in the book of Yeshayahu that it says that my light, my honor, I don't give to others, meaning the ones who do idol worship or go against Hashem and so forth, and sinners, that Hashem says, no, I don't give, you don't get from my light. So comes a big question. So how do we see wicked people alive in the world and bad things? How, if Hashem doesn't give them from His light, then how do they remain? So the answer is He gives them from His external light, but not from the Or Ganuz, not from this real deep hidden light of Hashem. But that brings us to a conclusion that even the evil things that are bad, inside is hidden a very powerful and strong light that if you know how to crack it, then you take it out. That's why he's talking here about Yaakov. They had to go to Mitzrayim, and he brought with him the Shekhinah. And after Yaakov died, the Shekhinah went to Yosef. After Yosef died, the Shekhinah stayed with the nation of Israel. And then when they went out of Mitzrayim, the Shekhinah went out with them. So I have to understand that even the evil and the bad things that are happening to my life, I have to know how to coordinate between what's going on. Because everybody, and nobody can say different, we're all going through a lot of challenges in our life. And hardships, and pain, and disappointments, and so many problems. So you have to know how to categorize them. When it's coming from my own actions, when it's coming because Hashem just wants to cleanse me and to purify me, and when it's coming because that's when I need to fight the Yetzer Hara. We talked about it there last week. The fight between Esav and Yaakov is a constant fight. And that's the fight that we have to do all the time. Now when you know that that's the job, I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, had stinky jobs. When I was a young kid, I had the worst jobs. But I had to make money. And not all the jobs you sit in an office and somebody makes tea for you. Some of the jobs you have to get very dirty and you work hard and long hours. So this world is a hard job. 24 hours a day you work in this world. So, but everything that Hashem does, there's all good benefit behind it. If you know how to recognize and to focus and to be able to see what's that good, then you're able to retract this godly light out. That's the connection we see, and we'll explain it already another time, between Chanukah, very briefly, because we know that on Chanukah is lit up, is shining a light that is called Or Ganuz, the concealed light. What is this Or Ganuz? This is the light that Hashem created in the world before the sun and the moon. In the beginning of Sefer Bereshit, it says Vayihi Or, and there should be light. Well, what is this light? We know the sun was created on Wednesday, so what light is it talking about? Another source of light. And this is a light that is called Or Ganuz, the concealed light. So we went through that many times. It was lit up for three days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. One opinion says it was lit in the whole way time, 72 hours. The majority go by that this light was shining for only 36 hours, 12 hours on Sunday, 12 hours on Monday, 12 hours on Tuesday, totaling 36 hours. But it says in the Talmud, that's one of the things that we talked in the morning. If you notice, if you're looking at our text and our scripts, there's barely anything about Chanukah. Look in the Talmud. For Sukkot, there's a whole tractate. For Rosh Hashanah, a whole tractate. For Pesach, a whole tractate. You know how many pages in the Talmud are about Chanukah? 2 pages in the Talmud about Chanukah. That's the whole thing in Masechet Shabbat. 2 pages! The entire Talmud, we have 2 pages about Chanukah. In the Zohar, nothing in the Zohar about Chanukah. Only in Tikkunei Zohar, a few ma'amarim. Nothing about Chanukah. You know when we started getting information about Chanukah? From the Ari HaKadosh. From the Arizal started a wellspring of information about Chanukah. Chanukah is the most powerful holiday. It's the holiday that will sustain forever even after Mashiach comes. From the Arizal started tons of information about Chanukah. So we do know that the Or Ganuz is shining on Chanukah. In the Talmud, in the Yerushalmi, not in the Bavli, in Tractate Brachot, it's talking about this Or Ganuz. Not talking about Chanukah, just talking about the Or Ganuz. And it says that it was shining for 3 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Then Hashem concealed it, La'atid Lavo, for the future, for the tzaddikim. But nevertheless, when He created Adam HaRishon, on Friday, the Or Ganuz came out again. So the Or Ganuz was shining for 12 hours on Friday. But right after that, Adam HaRishon sinned and messed it all up. The Or Ganuz was supposed to be removed, but already was Knisat Shabbat. It says in the Talmud, the Or Ganuz approached Hashem and says, please let me shine another 24 hours throughout the Shabbat. So we end up having that the Or Ganuz was shining Friday and entire Shabbat. 36 hours, Friday and full Shabbat. So again we get this 36 hours. This number 36. Where else do we find the 36? We have 36 candles. Not 36 tzaddikim. Everybody answers 36 tzaddikim. 36 candles in Chanukah. And not including the Shamash. And according to what we know, this was brought down by the book that is called HaRokeach, a book of Kabbalah, beautiful, unbelievable book, and a lot of information about Chanukah. But he says that every candle in Chanukah is 1 hour of the Or Ganuz in the Sheshet Yamei Bereshit. So this is the time that you have 30 minutes to 50 minutes. There's different opinions. Some opinion says you have to sit in front of the candles 30 minutes. Some opinion says 40, some opinion says 50. I'm going to explain towards Hanukkah. We did that already last year. You can find the video online where I explain what we need to read. There are 7 times that we read Tehillim 91 with the end of 90, if you remember, and Ala Bekoch, and another chapter of Tehillim, the Mizor, the video, the Menorah. We'll explain that. That's what you do next to the candles. But it's brought down by many that all you need to do during the time when the candles are lit, to look at the candles and to ask Hashem that to give you the power that you'll be able to see the good in everything. In good in people, good in situation, that everything has something good. It can't be that somebody is completely evil. It can't be that the situation is completely bad. But we are so narrow that we can't see the good in many things. We can't see the good in people. We can't see the good in the situation. I gave an example this morning that many years ago, that was way before I was observant, I was in partnership with some guy. And at some point, he wasn't an honest guy. And he kind of like took me for a ride. And we had a whole year of arguments and lawyers and balagan, and he ended up like literally kicking me out of the business, and I ended up suffering a huge amount of loss, and the headache, the year of backwards and forth and constantly lawyers, and it didn't get to a trial, but it was a very hard year. 3 months after the year is out, I'm finally just happy this guy's not in my life. I cut a very big loss of money. 3 years after that, he was arrested by the FBI for some huge things that he did. And if I was partner in that company, I would go down with the company and with him, and he wouldn't be sitting here right now. I would be now knitting, I don't know, a sweater in jail somewhere. So, and I was like, look at that. Look at that. You know, the Kadosh Baruch Hu sometimes does something so extreme. I mean, I was saying, why did I do, or why am I getting this suffering? Kadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle that I was removed from this guy. And I saw it so clear how sometimes the Kadosh Baruch Hu does something bad, and it seems to you something bad, but really Hashem is saving you. Just at the moment, it looks very, very bad. Wait, be patient, see the good in everything. You'll see that after the fact, you look back and you'll be able to see how Hashem did unbelievable. So why do you want to suffer through that time? Sit, relax, enjoy, put a smile on your face, enjoy. Just know Hashem is in control. He's taking care of everything. You do what you need to do, Hashem will do what He needs to do, and everything will be good. רבי חנניה בן הקשיא אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל, לפיכך הרבה להם תורה ומצוות שנאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר.